is adolescent. It's keeping that swing. Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. But you got to swing.
Aloha no kako. As we embark on this evening together, let us take the time to acknowledge Hawaii as an indigenous space where the descendants of the original people are today identified as Kanaka Maoli, Eo. We recognize that it was through coercion, force, and the breaking of formal treaties that this land was illegally seized. Her Majesty Queen Liliuokalani temporarily yielded the Hawaiian Kingdom and these territories under duress and protest to the United States to avoid the bloodshed of her people. Let us further recognize and express gratitude for the generations of Aboriginal Hawaiians and their knowledge systems that have shaped and continue to shape Hawaii in a sustainable way that allows us to learn here today. The Aina, on which the University of Hawaii at Manoa sits, is located in the Ahupua'a of Waikiki, in the Moku of Kona, on the Mokupuni of Oahu, in the Pai Aina o Hawaii. The particular ili Aina that Kennedy Theatre is situated on is at the triangulation of Kauala'a, Wailele, and Wa'ahila. Makai of the theater is Kapa'akea, and to the west is Puahia and Pilipili. Mauka of our campus are the uplands of Kaho'iwai, the water that is a source for our major stream of Kānewai. Acknowledging these traditional wahipana honors the Aina and the historic relationship that Kanaka Maoli have with this place. Mahalo.
Waipuna lau ke aloha e nā hoa makamaka I ākuakua mai ke ia la. No ke ia papahana e ho'okahekahe ana I ka wai o ka na'auao. He wai ia I ola kākou. E ola I ka wai puna, he wai e inu. He wai e mana, he wai e ola. E ola no kākou. Aloha and welcome to Kennedy Theatre. I'm Haile Opua Baker, the director of the Hawaiian Theatre Program in the Department of Theatre and Dance here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. We are very grateful to have this opportunity to partner with the Po'ai Ke Aloha Aina under the direction of Dr. Kamanamaikalani Beamer, as well as Native Hawaiian Student Services, led by Dr. Willie Kawai, and Hawaii Nui Akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge, under the leadership of Dr. Jonathan Kamaka Vivo'ole Osorio. This Piʻo Summit springs forth ike, and that ike is like vai, that we are sharing and spreading so that we all can quench our thirst, because we all know we've been thirsty for a long time. Yes. I want to mahalo ya Kamoani Ala Tavares and Kaipulau Makani Olono for grounding us here in space, in time, and recognizing our ancestors that make themselves apparent to us daily here in the lush, beautiful Uluwehiwehi Valley of Manoa. A couple of logistics. This evening, we're going to ask all of you to refrain from video recording. We are very thankful that Kanaio Kana is here to record the event and to share it so people in our community can experience this keynote presentation, conversation virtually. In the event you do take photographs, we want to ask you to hold those and not post until after the event is done. And that's our humble request for you all as audience members. A couple other things, we want to just call your attention to the exit signs that are lit at the house right and house left. In the event we need those exit signs, we just want you to know where they are. As I was sitting and listening to the panelists this afternoon, of the role that theater plays in movements of resistance and self-determination. The theater can serve as a critical lens to analyze society. Through drama, we can raise a mirror up to the populace for social critique and reflection. The theater can also be a political tool to raise consciousness, to sway public opinion. And for Kanaka Maoli, staging our mo'olelo has been a tool of empowerment and enlightenment. We reclaim our language, our history, and our culture through performance. The theater, music, and the arts in general have always been tools for liberation. And I have a feeling that our world-renowned liberation theologian is going to touch on those things this evening. So without further ado, Imua no kako, I'd like to introduce our MC for the event, Mehana Okala Hind, the Senior Vice President for Community Programs at the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, CHNA. Mahalo.
Kamana said to come out here and do as the spirit moves you, Mehano Kala. And with Ka'ipu coming out here and honoring this place through chant, and Haile Opua welcoming us into her house. This is Haile Opua's house, yeah, and we honor her. So when she says that she suggests that you guys don't do something, yeah, take that as like words from your tutu wahine at her house, yeah, not much of a suggestion, yeah. But I wanted to acknowledge her and acknowledge what you guys have experienced today, and honor Vai, and talk about the discussion that's going to happen very soon. Imagine it. And pulled forward the names of Kane and Kanaloa, the instigator and the action, the deep thought, right, and the movement, like art and poetry and action and building and destroying and building back again, that kind of energy that it takes to have people thrive and have an Aina live. That's what I hope that you guys experience today. And that's what I know will happen by the end of this evening. I have the distinct honor to introduce a national hero. Wait, not that one. When I speak of nation, I speak of the Hawaiian nation. When I speak of hero, I speak of Dr. Jonathan Kamakawiwo Ole Osorio. I was listening to many of the podcasts that are online. YouTube just kind of feeds them to me over and over. And one by Dr. Cornel West popped up about in a recent discussion that he had at Wake Forest. And one of the things he said in there made me really think about John. He was talking about revolutionary piety. And he talked about and described John Coltrane. And I was like, oh, yeah. We have that kind of energy in Hawaii, too, you know. And he said of John Coltrane, he said, yes, he is chocolate, but that's not the reason why I love him. I love him because he is a chocolate-loving artist that gives of himself. So it's not because John is Hawaiian that I love him. It is because with every inch of his body, with every breath out of his mouth, with every walk throughout the days, he loves Hawaiians and Hawaii. And he is an artist that has given of himself, whether his artistry shows up in dismembering Lahui, or whether it shows up in "Can you see me now?" Finish the line, everybody. That's it. By the way, that's about the length of time I can sing. That's about it. I would chant the Kumulipo, but that's about it. You get 3 seconds of actual singing out of Mihana. But back to John. And John knows me, and he's sitting on the side cringing right now because I get kind of dramatic in my introductions of him, you know. But he's worth it. Our Hawaii, whenever it is that we bring special people into our spaces, we place the most gifted, the most talented, those that represent excellence for us, and we place them in front of these guests to be able to show how much we honor intelligence, how much we honor service and duty to community and family. And so, Ohana, join me and fill this love with, fill this room with love and aloha with your clapping hands, and welcome to the stage Dr. Dean, and most recently, and probably his proudest title, Pops, Jonathan Kamakawiwo Ole Osorio.
Aloha mai kako. You know, if you think that we're spending an awful lot of time celebrating people tonight, then I think you should remember that given the work that has called us to this, given the crises that have called us to this work, it's really important that we celebrate the people who do it. One of these days, I'm going to introduce her. But it's my job to introduce our two speakers today and the people who are going to be having a conversation over the very, very real crises that not only Hawaii is facing, but America as well. And I'm going to begin with someone who's been first a student and then very quickly a friend and colleague. And at one point, I think he thought of himself as a protege, and now I think of him as a teacher for me. Kamanamaikalani Beamer is a professor of Hawaiian Studies. He is also the chairholder of the Dana Naone Hall Faculty Chair in Hawaiian Studies. literature, and the environment. This chair was created within the School of Hawaii Nui Akea back in 2021, and he is the first chairholder. And the purpose of that chair was really to bring the faculty of the University of Hawaii, the Native Hawaiian faculty, into closer communion with community organizers, leaders, activists, workers, and also with people across the ocean who have been doing this kind of organizing for the betterment of communities. Bring them together in order to fashion new ways based on old ways, ike kupuna, ancestral knowledge, the things that we knew worked in Hawaii for 1,000 years or more. Kamana was the ideal first candidate, and he wasted no time in meeting with and working with a number of groups out in the communities, not just on Oahu, but on Maui and Kauai as well. He brought them together in this first Piʻo Summit this morning, an amazing success here at Eamon. If you missed that, you missed something. People who have been doing the work in the community and were present, sharing their knowledge, sharing their enthusiasm and passion, sharing their cautions about the future. And Kamana did that. It's really difficult to imagine a future, a real future for our people, not just Kanaka, but all of us who call this place home, without the presence and the growth and the maturing and the taking of leadership of people like Kamanamaikalani Beamer. So I am very proud to introduce to you Kamanamaikalani Beamer, Professor of Hawaiian Studies, Chairholder of the Dana Naone Hall Faculty Chair. They will come out together. I am also deeply grateful to Kamana for allowing me to introduce our renowned speaker, Dr. Cornel West. No stranger to anyone here this evening, his writing, teaching, and activism epitomize the academic and political activities of my generation and are as compassionate as they are prophetic, as elegant as they are stark commentaries on American society. I cannot help but see the confluence of our political timelines in Hawaii with the publication dates of Dr. West's well-known titles. Race Matters was published in 1993, the year when tens of thousands of our people gathered in dozens of places across the Aina to mark the 100th anniversary of the seizure of our government and the demeaning of our sovereign by American agents and U.S. military forces. This was a modern historic moment, and along with the tribunal, marking our commitment to the restoration of our independence. Dr. West published Democracy Matters, winning the fight against imperialism in 2004, the year that more than 10,000 of us marched through Waikiki to protest lawsuits filed by neoliberal activists against the Kamehameha schools, Alulike, and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And when state and federal courts joined them in obscuring our struggle to rebuild our nation by referring to our agencies as some suspect kind of affirmative action. His most recent acclaimed work, Black Prophetic Fire, appeared in 2014. Many here tonight will remember how thousands of Kanaka Maoli challenged the Department of Interior representatives when they came that year to Hawaii to take the pulse of our people on federal recognition. For those of us who raised objections, the past 40 years have been an unending struggle to present our very legitimate claims to national restoration before an American public that does not feel compelled to understand us. Like our own, Cornel West's work over the past 30 years and more offers a determined, persistent, and passionately knowledgeable resistance to what he identifies as a pervasive nihilism in America today. Free market fundamentalism, aggressive militarism, and escalating authoritarianism. And this last, we should add, has in recent years become more familiar to us as a naked and unapologetic expression of white supremacy. Read this man's work, and you will feel the same sense of awe that I do for how an incisive and stubborn opposition to America's headlong pursuit of wealth, power, and justifications of hatred and cruelty can be expressed in such sensitive, graceful language, compassionate not only toward the victims, but to those who have been misdirected onto that nihilistic path. To read Cornel West is somehow to be up again on the mountain with the Kiai, the kupuna, and the thousands of supporters on Mauna Kea, and to feel, moment upon moment, encounter after encounter, that a better life is possible for us and for the Aina. To you, Dr. West, I offer this brief tribute from a people who suffered through horrific depopulation and who rebuilt our nation on the foundations of literacy, democratic ideals, constitutional government, and friendly relations across the Pacific, across the globe, only to have the United States of America, alleged champion of self-determination and democracy, seize our country, ban our language, turn us into one of the most militarized states in America, and saddle us with an economy that urges speculators and millionaires to claim our lands and waters, while our own people often seek survival in places far, far from home. Your writing, your teaching, and advocacy and activism reinforce what drives our own work: a clear-eyed resistance to greed, a full-throated denunciation of cruelty, a hopeful resurrection of the language that knows every rock and turn of the stream, the names of our winds, rains, and ocean currents, and an aloha for these islands that we live to protect. This evening, we dedicate the work of our lives to you.
God bless you. What a blessing. What a blessing. God bless you. God bless you. My dear brother Beamer. My dear brother Beamer. What a blessing. Indeed, 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 indeed. Oh, and that introduction was so beautiful.
Wow. Aloha nui kākou. Mahalo for joining us. If you feel like me, this is not a dream. Dr. Cornel West is in the house, literally. It's a tremendous privilege and honor to be here together tonight to share some truth speak and insights from what I feel is one of the great leaders and thinkers and examples of love and empathy and truth speak that have really walked our planet. So mahalo nui, Dr. West. It's a true privilege and honor. Earlier today at our summit, this is the Piʻo Summit on Wai Sovereignty and Justice, and look, it's a gift to our community to just try to galvanize, put more wind in our sails, in our movements. And the Piʻo is this image, it's how a rainbow looks. It's that arch And we kind of discussed how rainbows, you know, in the midst of a storm, light moving through water shows us something, turns the gray into color. Yeah. It allows us to see what's behind the light and the truth. And it's been a lot of storms in Hawaii. It's been rough times. We had a false missile alert a few years ago. Thought our lives were ending because we're a target because of the U.S. military presence in our islands. The COVID crisis, all of these things, and the hope is in these summits to be like that Piʻo, to see these rainbows that foretell a future state for our islands in place when the storm is over. Yeah, a place of justice and liberation. And that's the intention of bringing Dr. West here together with us tonight. So if I can start, Dr. West, you know, for everyone in our audience, you need no introduction, and we know you through your work, but having you here is the chance to actually ask you, can you just talk about your journey and what motivated you and allowed you to thrive in this system, and as a global leader for justice and empathy and fighting for, you know, the most vulnerable of our society, coming to a place like Hawaii and being willing to talk about occupation and justice.
Well, first I want to say that I am so blessed to be here. So blessed to be here. Very much so. My beloved wife, Anahita Madavi West, a distinguished professor and poet. Iranian wrestling was what's going on right now with our brothers and sisters in Iran. We were saying that, you know, it's not only a special spirit, but there is a spiritual greatness that I feel at the depths of my soul when I interact with my precious Kanaka brothers and sisters. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. I don't know whether it's because they're so soulful. And soul for me is the sharing of a soothing sweetness against the backdrop of catastrophe. Because I come from a soulful people. Been hated for 400 years, every day of their lives. And yet still keep dishing out love warriors every generation. What goes into the shaping and molding of a Martin King and a Fannie Lou Hamer and a Ida B. Wells Barnett and a John Coltrane Love Supreme. That's not a function of skin pigmentation, just like the greatness of my precious Kanaka brothers and sisters. It's not a function of their skin pigmentation, even though it's beautiful. It's a function of family, community, connection to the best of their history. So in the face of all of the vicious trauma, they keep dishing out wounded healers at their best. In the face of terror, here come the freedom fighters. Why you keep fighting? You know your back's against the wall. Do you know what it is to be a Kanaka brother or sister? Do you know what it is to be a black brother or sister in the belly of the beast, the American Empire? Hawaii's always been ground zero of the worst of the American Empire. What I mean by that, it's a crime scene. With lies and crimes, mendacity, criminality, force, and fraud in the name of liberty. Now, for some of our precious academic brothers and sisters, they say, what an irony. We say, no, that's not irony. That's vicious hypocrisy that loses sight of the precious humanity of a slice of the species named Kanaka brothers and sisters. And the same would be true for black folk for 400 years, 244 years of slavery, another 100 years of neo-slavery. Every 2.5 days for 50 years, some black baby, a man, a woman hanging from some tree, the strange fruit that the great Billie Holiday sang about, and the Jewish brother Maripol writing the lyrics. And then another 50 years of Jim Crow Jr. And that's what we're dealing with right now in the American empire. So that the question becomes, how do we learn from each other? And that's the spirit that I come in with. A spirit of deep humility. I come to learn like a jazz man. Listen so that I can emerge with a stronger voice. Because we got a whole lot of echoes in the American empire that just express neoliberal goodly-gop or increasing neo-fascist language. Those silos, the polarization and gangsterization that's occurring on the mainland, and it has connections with Hawaii as well. But when we look at the best, and I'm just talking about the best, we don't want to engage in any kind of romanticizing of black folk or Kanaka brothers and sisters. I know there's a history of black gangsters and thugs, of black folk who accommodate themselves to the empire, the predatory capitalism, the patriarchy, the various ways in which they facilitated white supremacy with their black faces. So we're not just talking about race in the abstract. We're talking about what is the moral content of your identity? What is the spiritual quality of it? What are the political consequences of it? Are you really concerned and care about? And here my Christian sensibility comes through. The least of these. Those Franz Fanon call the wretched of the earth. Those whose humanity is often rendered invisible. Those James Cleveland call ordinary people. A Sly Stone call everyday people. Their voices, their dignity, their sense of raising their voices in such a way that it shapes the destiny of their people, their nation, their empire, their radical democracy. And so for me, I begin with a personal story, which is, I am who I am because somebody loved me. I wish you all could have met my mother. I'll never be one half of the human being she was. Just lost a month and a half ago. I'm talking about that. Irene B. West. Oof, boy. What a standard. My father, Clifton. What a standard. Not so much of narrow worldly success, but of moral and spiritual greatness without purity and being pristine. And moral and spiritual greatness for me has everything to do with what Du Bois called those four questions: integrity in the face of oppression, honesty in the face of deception, decency in the face of assault, and courage in the face of brute force. I'll say that again: integrity, honesty, decency, and courage. And those virtues are always subversive. Always subversive. Because the hounds of hell, of organized greed, of escalating hatred, of chronic hypocrisy, shot through all of us, not simply the others, shot through us. And how we wrestle with that battle on the side of our own souls. What kind of integrity will we have? What kind of honesty will we have? Will we tell the truth about the making of the American empire? Will we tell the truth about January 17th, 1893? Will we tell the truth about September the 6th, 1897? That's one of my favorite moments in the history of this land. Because that's when the precious Kanaka brothers and sisters came together in front of that palace and said, we're going to get these petitions together. We're going to find out who America really is. We're going to find out what kind of moral consistency and spiritual constancy they really have. Or are they preoccupied with greed and hatred? Will they be hypocritical? What do you have to say, Mr. Grover Cleveland? What do you have to say, Congress? It looked like a little movement for a while, right? Mm-hmm. Senate voted against it. Mm-hmm. No, Grover Cleveland says, this is gangster-like activity. That's essentially what he said. You stole it. You ought to be ashamed. Now, I'm not used to hearing that from U.S. presidents. So if Grover Cleveland can say that, then almost anybody can say it. It's true. Richard Pettigrew and Robert Frisbee, Howard and the others to think we're anti-imperialists in some abstract way, but let's see what you're going to be on the ground. And then here comes the joint resolution. Illegal, immoral. Take it. Grab. We don't have to worry about law. We don't have to worry about morality. We're an empire, like Britain, like France, like Japan. We're an empire. Empires do what they want. Like in Plato's Republic, Thrasymachus, might makes right. Power dictates morality. Do anything you can to get away with it or be obsessed with the 11th commandment, thou shalt not get caught. And if you can get away with it, no accountability, no answerability, no responsibility bigger than your guns and your money and your geopolitical power. That's the history of empires. Of course, American empire is not the only empire like that. Empires do that all the time. But the question is the countervailing forces. That's September 6, 1897. Let's hear the voices. Let's sustain our organization in the name of integrity, honesty, decency, and courage. Well, it doesn't look like you have a good chance. Since when in American history? Since when in U.S. history? Since when in world history? Since when in the history of the species has it ever looked good for oppressed peoples? But what you gonna do in the meantime with your precious children and your mothers and your fathers? What are you gonna do in terms of the memories of your ancestors and your great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers? What kind of human being will you be in the move from womb to tomb? Of course it doesn't look good. It's never looked good for oppressed peoples. Now, I'm coming from a blues people. You know, the blues is all about catastrophe lyrically expressed. B.B. King used to say, nobody loves me but my mama, and she might be driving too. That's catastrophe. Just like the strange fruit, the American terrorism, the lynching, that's catastrophe. What you gonna do in the face of that? We're going to proceed with style, with a smile, with organization, with vision, with an analysis, and you're not ever oppressed ruling classes. You won't steal our joy. You won't crush our memories. Lie on us if you want. We stand for truth, and the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. Tell us we have no culture. No, listen to the beauty of these songs, these chants, these movements, these artistic expressions. Keep real K is right. Beauty is in many ways the first and final touch of terror that we can bear, and yet we keep moving anyway. The same is true with the holy. Since when does anybody who takes the holy seriously avoid the cross of some sort? Now, of course, as a Christian, I got my tilt. I know we Christians have no monopoly on truth, beauty, or goodness, especially given the vicious history of Christianity, not just in this land, but so many parts of the world. But the prophetic ones, that's the ones I'm concerned about. Same would be true with my Muslim brothers and sisters. It's not the gangsters in Iran I'm talking about, it's Malcolm X I'm talking about, prophetic Islam, or the Buddhists, bell hooks, that's the one I'm keeping track of, and Ambedkar, the Dalit people, that's the Buddhists I'm keeping track of. Hindus, oh yes, tied into suppression of the Dalit people and the so-called untouchable people. What about the prophetic Hindus trying to shatter it? That's the ones we're keeping track of, and our precious secular brothers and sisters, the agnostics and the atheists and so forth. Yeah, we got some prophetic ones there as well. Thank God for Diderot. Europe is not monolithic. Europe is not homogeneous. There's some important prophetic voices proceeding out of the Europeanization of the world between 1492 and 1945. Same is true in America, with the Americanization of the world from 1945 up to the present, as we approach the depths of its spiritual decay and moral decrepitude. The callousness, the indifference toward the suffering of others, the obsession with not just greed, but short-term gain, with very little sense of connecting with the best of one's history, obsessed with market, status, spectacle, image. What happened to moral content and spiritual quality and democratic possibility and community, the things that really matter in life? So in part, in answer to your question, I know this is a kind of roundabout way of getting to it. It's a roundabout way, but I haven't forgot my brother's query now. That I view myself as just one small moment in the larger story and tradition and history of not just black people, but any slice of humanity that's trying to choose integrity, honesty, decency, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds in which greed and hatred and indifference to the suffering of others and callousness, cold-heartedness, and mean-spiritedness with all of the rationalizations. And of course, we can talk about the academy these days. My God. The mark is just taken over. Corporatization's taken over. The very disciplinary division of disciplines that makes it almost impossible to have a sense of the whole, to exercise imagination in such a way that through your empathy and being connected to the suffering of those who are being crushed can be manifest. And so professionalism becomes one protocol of conformity for status and position, and what happens to genuine Socratic dialogue that tries to shatter conformity in such a way that you'd actually still have vocations. I love the introduction to you, brother. Your vocation as someone who loves the people. You see, that's not a profession at all. Young folk these days come up to me, Brother West, I'm trying to find out what my brand is. Your brand, you better find out what your cause is. Oh, I need to have a brand. Everybody told me I got to, You just marketized, commodified, commercialized all the way down in mind, heart, soul, and body in such a way that to be human is to have a brand. And of course, I come from a people who they put brands on our bodies on those slave ships as we confronted those slave auctions. So I'm not a brand kind of brother at all. Well, your brand is actually X. That's what you say. Yeah, you put on your black suit all the time. No, that's my cemetery clothes. I'm coffin ready for giving it all for people who are suffering. That ain't no brand at all. That's tied to a cause. And as a Christian, the kingdom of God ain't no brand. The struggle for my precious Kanaka brothers and sisters, that's not a brand, that's a cause. And that means you're something you're willing to live for, something you're willing to die for, something you're willing to love and laugh with nuance and embrace your people and then embrace others. But you have to begin at home. Because the last thing we need is precious Kanaka brothers and sisters loving everybody but themselves. Because we've seen that in the history of black people. One of the ways in which you could be highly successful is for a black person to love everybody but black people. Because you're highly useful for the ruling classes. You're highly useful for the powers that be. Come on in, Clarence Thomas. Come on in, brother. Come on in. But that's the right-wing version. Come on in, Barack Obama. Come on in, Barack Obama. That's the neoliberal version. Make history. But what are you going to do about the poor vis-a-vis Wall Street? What are you going to do about those drones being dropped? What are you going to do about the 6 bombs that are taking place, the 6 wars taking place simultaneously, 25,000 bombs dropped every year and walk around with a peace prize? Hey, brother, that's not irony, that's hypocrisy. And I don't say that in any kind of hatred. I love my brother. I'm Christian, try to love everybody. But I tell the truth. Because it's not about any one of us individually. It's not about any one of us in terms of our narrow worldly success. We're talking about moral and spiritual greatness. Malcolm X died with $151 in his pocket with none in the bank. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't have enough money to pay rent. John Coltrane died at 40 years old. 40 years old. They're great precisely because they chose integrity, honesty, decency. Same would be true in those folk who gathered September 6, 1897, in front of that palace. And said, well, let's just start with the petitions. If that doesn't work, we got to come up with something. Well, doesn't look like this strategy is working. No, doesn't look like it is. But we're going to try whatever strategy. Why? Because our love for our people is unstoppable. We have a predilection for alternatives with vision, imagination, and analysis. Well, it's not working out too well. Come on down with us and watch this in motion. Because hope is a verb as well as a virtue. You see, don't talk about hope, be a hope. And a hope is sustaining the motion and momentum. Then the social movements hit. Boom, certain truths are revealed. And then the powers that be say, okay, we got caught now. We're going to have to make some concessions. I see. Very much like black studies in the universities in America. Very much like Hawaiian studies at the University of Hawaii. This place has been around, what, since 1907?
Universities, is it 17?
It is 1907. Now, you know the folks who founded this university in 1907 didn't have Hawaiian studies in mind.
No.
They didn't have precious Kanaka brothers and sisters in mind. Not at all. You had to put pressure on it. Thank God for our dear sister.
That's right.
Sister Trask. Oh, yes, let's never forget her. Let's never forget our sister. I'm serious about that. And for me, it's not even a matter of ideological, political agreement on every point. I'm talking about her soul. I'm talking about what she did in terms of sustaining her struggle because of her love of a people who have been treated in an unlovely way. That's what moral and spiritual greatness is all about for me, you see. And of course, there's many others as well. I'm just looking at my dear brother here. Brother Hano, is that what it is? Yeah. Give it up for Brother Hano. Give it up for my brother. Lord, struggling on the island. He's got a precious daughter at Princeton, junior at Princeton. Is that right? Yeah, she is. She's going to come back fortified, ready. And also with that style and smile that we're talking about, impress people at their best. I know I'm going on too long, little brother, but I try to always situate my life within a larger context. It starts with empires, predatory capitalist expansion, white supremacy, male supremacy, but I don't stop there. I begin with the countervailing forces, the countervailing voices, the countervailing figures. And those countervailing forces and figures can come in all colors. That's very important to keep in mind because it's a human choice. And if it's a human choice, then people can get outside of their boxes. John Brown, who died for black people, was as white as a stereotypical Norwegian. But he loved black people. He loved black people deeply, you see. And that makes a difference. I don't have to be Iranian to be in solidarity with my precious Iranian brothers and sisters right now, you see. I don't have to be Palestinian to be in deep solidarity with my Palestinian brothers and sisters. I don't have to, we can go on and on. I don't have to be Jewish to be in solidarity with my Jewish brothers and sisters when they attacked in Pittsburgh or France or whatever. It's a moral and spiritual connection. And I don't have to be Kanaka to be in deep solidarity with my precious Kanaka brothers and sisters. Oh, that's what I come to say. Very much so. Very much so.
Dr. West, maybe to build off of that, you know, we're a small, this is the most precious place in the world for many of us, and it's a loving, important place that we will fight for, that a kupuna battled for and stood. The generations of Kanaka have resisted and fought against American imperialism, died. I see people in the stands fighting for deoccupation, educating our people.
Absolutely.
It's incredible. What we do for this place. But we're such a small number of people. What can we do to get our story out? What can we do better to have solidarity with other movements across the world?
I mean, one is that we've got to take our dialogue on the road. We got to take it in space. No, very much so. We got to get it out there. Wow. We have to raise the voices in highly visible places where people can see the genuine humanity, reveling in each other's humanity, and the genuine solidarity connected to the suffering that could maybe render it more and more visible. Because the problem is that, you've got so much willful ignorance out there. The people come to Hawaii and all they see is paradise. You say, wait a minute. The beaches are beautiful. Sunshine, magnificent. Now let's look at the history. Let's look at the history. There are some inferno-like conditions and circumstances in the paradise. And it didn't start today. It goes all the way back. And there's human beings of all colors. See, I don't believe that there's any kind of a pre-modern idyllic situation. That any society I know has various structures of domination that need to be highlighted. So even before the Europeans came, I'm with the commoners because I'm a radical Democrat, small d. So all the talk about the kings and the queens, fine, but I want to let you know, I'm a Democrat, king up in the power. I'm a Democrat. I'm with the commoners. I want you to know that. But overthrowing any kingdom in the name of profits and money and white supremacist rationalizations is a crime against humanity, even when you do have structures of domination that were in place. You see? And that's very real. I had that experience when I went to Egypt. They took me and showed me the pyramids. Brother West, this is Africa, and these magnificent pyramids. It's unbelievable. I said, I appreciate technological ingenuity and creativity, but I'm with the people who built the pyramids, not the pharaohs who were buried in the pyramids. That's a moral and spiritual question. See, so I don't get excited about pharaohs of any color. They could be in the White House. They could be 10 Downing Street. I don't know what the street is in Honolulu, but Bishop, because we were just at the palace, so Bishop Street. Yeah, we saw Bishop Street. They got Jack in the Box right around the corner. Yeah, that was Bishop Street. We were there. And Fetch, too, was very nice with Fetch Restaurant. But I'll get back to my point here. But the point is that in telling the stories, we have to try to have this moral consistency. And that's what's lacking. Because without that, you don't have enough trust. And without trust, you can't have genuine solidarity. And without solidarity, oppressed people more and more get divided and conquered. Divided and conquered with not enough unity. And that's not the same thing as unanimity. Unity in different voices concerned about suffering, concerned about people catching hell, you see. And so one of the ways in which I think the Precious Kanaka movement can be more visible is more raising voices and more conversation, both in Honolulu and New York and Los Angeles and so forth, to get it out there. And to connect it to what's going on in various parts of the Middle East, connected to our precious Dalit brothers and sisters in India, and connected to the Roma, so-called gypsies in Europe, connected to working people, connected to women's struggles, and so forth and so on. And without that kind of comprehensive vision and analysis, then it's just so easy to feel so isolated and feel as if you're just in the world all by yourself with very few people really caring. Now, I know among the younger generation there's a lot of talk these days about allies. And I'm old school, so I'm not necessarily right, but I do want to trot out my opinion about this because, you see, allies for me is not a strong enough term. You all know Bill Evans, who played in Miles Davis's band. He's Vanilla Brother, wasn't he? He wasn't an ally of Miles Davis. He's in the band. He's in the band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's in the
Together.
band.
Exactly.
So that this notion of allies, like you just kind of dip in somebody else's context and feel as if you're kind of passing through and do all that you can, and usually look 5, 10, 15 years later, they going on to something else. Because it's a lifestyle rather than a calling that allows them to be long-distance runners. They're sprinters without being long-distance runners. When you're in the band, you are a constitutive figure, voice, element in the movement. See, Miles Horton was the founder of Highlander Center in Tennessee, the student of the great Reinhold Niebuhr at Union Seminary where I teach. He was a Vanilla brother. Rosa Parks was there 3 months before she went back to Alabama and sat down on the bus to stand up for justice. Stokely Carmichael was there. I was here with Stokely 30 years ago. It was a beautiful moment with Brother Neil Abercrombie. He was in Congress, and Sister Nancy Caraway. She was in studying at Columbia. And Brother Manfred, what was his last name? Henningsen, I think it was. He was in political science. And Stokely and I, we went from various contexts. And, Stokely was a real revolutionary. I'm not talking about revolutionary between 4 and 6 in the afternoon. He woke up in the morning with revolution on his mind. I woke up thinking about my mama and my kids, and later on I'd get to it after breakfast, That Brother West, let's hit it. Oh, I don't know, man. Turn on some music, man, come on. Woo! But I loved that brother, even though we didn't agree on everything. And he always was hard on me because my, Christianity, he's serious scientific socialist. But I loved him and he loved me. We were sitting together actually at James Baldwin's funeral in New York, December 1987. He cried like a baby, I cried like a baby, we hugged. You see. Different ideological orientations, different religious, non-religious orientations, but comrades. So my point is, the brothers who are concerned about patriarchy, don't just be an ally, get in the band, get in the movement. Be a part of the movement. And that's a human choice. Don't feel as if somehow this label that's been trotted out over and over again is constraining your ability to be in solidarity with other folk who are suffering. Very, very important. Very, very important. So that I think that we just need more of these kinds of dialogues. We were talking about Standing Rock, about 6 years ago. Where is my dear Sister Camille? Where is Sister Camille at? Where is she? Camille. There she is. There, just give it up for this sister. Strong freedom fighter, lawyer. But you remember being there at Standing Rock. Whoa, what a magnificent moment, learning from each other. How we come up with different kind of strategies and tactics. Well, civil disobedience, nonviolence, different ways in which we come together over analysis, learning from folk who have very, very rich religious sensibilities that we know very little about. All of that's a way of actually fortifying us. And we need more such context. And they are coming, because as the American empire continues to decay and continues to dissolve, it's going to be the countervailing forces that constitute some possibility of authorizing a better and grander and different reality. Now, given the American military presence with all of the nuclear possibility, that's another reason why Hawaii is ground zero. You see. And you can go back to Alfred Mahan's work on the crucial role of navies for any empire that swept America in the 1880s and 90s and so forth. And he says, Hawaii is the most strategic territory for the expansion of the U.S. empire. Now, I know if you put that on U.S. television for a commercial, it's going to be a challenge. But it's the truth. It's the truth. Because the Japanese empire and all of its repressions and oppressions, now Chinese with its empires, what's going on in the internal dynamics of the various markets in relation to nation states in Asia, more and more moving to the center of the historical stage. And anybody who's fundamentally concerned about the future of the planet, the future of genuine self-determination, genuine democracy, and concerned about just human beings being able to live lives of decency and decency, has to have some analysis of comparative empires, comparative cultures, comparative literatures, comparative religions. Now, in many ways, the universities have just been catching up in the last 20 or 30 years, but the reality's been there for a long, long time. And it becomes crucial in terms of getting some handle on how we understand what's going on. Just the very fact of calling the United States an empire is a breakthrough for most of my fellow citizens, most of yours. People on the television. Brother West, how come you always call America empire on television? You must be so angry. What? What would you call it? 800 military units around the world, 4,500 inside of the country and the world. 55 cents for every dollar going to the military industrial complex, so we don't have enough money for education, health care, housing that's decent for ordinary people, rather than this predatory gentrification that's been sweeping the empire in every nook and cranny, every corner of the empire. Money, 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 real estate, real estate, real estate. Well, maybe it's a kind of empire, but it's different than the ones before. Every empire is different. Ask the Portuguese about that. They once had Brazil. Ask the Spanish about that. They once had the Philippines. Every empire is different. But now we're reaching the point where it is so undeniable that if you don't have a critique of imperialism in its contemporary form, you're not going to be able to understand what goes on, given the ways in which predatory capitalist tendencies are facilitated. And by predatory capitalist tendencies, I'm just talking about elites who are obsessed with profit, short-term profit, and will do almost anything in order to obtain it, even if democracy itself is called into question. That's neo-fascism. That's where we are in the U.S. empire. It is not just a matter of isolating Brother Trump as if somehow he's an individual who's responsible for the whole thing. No, he's just another gangster produced by the empire who happened to surface at a particular moment because so many everyday peoples who have such a tremendous hatred of the professional managerial class, who have been the winners in the corporate globalization that's taken place in the last 45 years. They hate CNN, they hate MSNBC, they hate Harvard, Yale, Princeton, University of Hawaii, and so forth and so on. It produces the professional managers. And they're looking for a Pied Piper, and they found one in billionaire. I don't know how he got through University of Pennsylvania, but I guess he did. So he's Ivy League in some sense. But gangster to the core. And he's an honest gangster. That's very different than neoliberal ones. He'll just tell you exactly what he feels. What he thinks about the Muslims. What he thinks about the immigrants. What he thinks about black people. Anybody. He's an honest gangster, but still a gangster. But the gangsters who've been organizing for a long time, like the ones in Charlottesville that we confronted in 2000, when was that though, babe? 2017, I think it was. Yeah, 2017. I tell you, that was quite an experience. That was right after Standing Rock. There was only 18 of us down there, and we were singing This Little Light of Mine. You got 46 different neo-Nazi and Klansmen coming together with their masks and their guns with ammunition in them. In fact, one of them came up to me and says, aren't you that so-and-so always calls everybody brother on television? I can't stand that. I said, you say what, brother? I said, let me tell you something. I said, Jesus loves you just like Jesus loves me. You choose to be a gangster, and I was a gangster before I met Jesus, and now I'm a redeemed sinner with gangster proclivities. I said, you got all that joylessness in your heart, tied to insatiable pleasures of hatred. Black folk and Jews, they used to hate Catholics, but I ran into David Duke, who's Catholic, so now you got a Catholic head of the major Klan branch. That's upward mobility American style. What a country. The best and the worst. We got some wonderful people in the country. They're just not running things. It's true. They're in social movements. They're doing wonderful things. They're feeling powerless. They're feeling helpless. They're feeling impotent. They feel as if they can't have impact because the powers that be, the politicians, are so often bought off by big money. The military, most of the money, and then big money. Wall Street, Silicon Valley, ... What happens in such a situation? The decay can continue, or there can be a moral and spiritual renaissance, a revival. And there's a very good chance that it's going to be the small groups with high quality of integrity, honesty, and decency and courage that will be the exemplars. Because it's not about numbers. It has never been about numbers. It's about the exemplary ones who have a commitment to deep love and compassion and empathy regardless. And as long as you have that cloud of witnesses in place, you have a chance. That's what's so precious about what you all have been doing with the Piʻo Summit. That's what's been precious with this for today. And it went well today, though. Is that right? Did it go well, Don? It did go well. Let's give it up for the Piʻo Summit. Give it up for the Piʻo Summit. Very important.
You know, I think in the history of our movement, right, we had Ko'olave. Uncle Walter just last week was doing his book stuff here. We've lost people. And then the crisis at Red Hill.
Yes, yes.
The Navy poisoning our water after avoidable crisis. You know, after Hawaiians resisting militarism for so many years, warning about the threats and what could happen. The military promised. I was a water commissioner. They looked me right in the eyes, said, this would never happen. We would never poison our own people. This is the most state-of-art, up-to-date system, integral for national defense. And now they can't even defuel it after they've poisoned people, after we know that they've released toxic forever chemicals into the water. But there was something about the water that brought people into the movement together. And I see Mikey and other water protectors here, you know, that brought in, all of a sudden, military wives next to Aloha Aina. And so maybe there's something about that water, like you're saying, that brought us together, that resistance to militarism, Dr. West. But
for the conception of land that feeds us. You see, you got to really linger with the profundity of that formulation. Land is not just a commodity to be bought and sold and squeezed out for profit. But there's an I-thou relation between human beings and the land. Because your very survival is predicated on how you treat it. And there's actually a spiritual dimension of how you relate to that land. Oh, how the species is hungry and thirsty for that level of morality and spirituality. And I'm not talking about New Age spirituality coming out of San Francisco, 1965. And I love the hippies and the yippies and everybody else, but I love them at a distance, let me put it that way. But when you have a longer tradition and a civilization that understand land in that way, it is an implicit indictment of the greed-driven commodification that views land as just an it and an object to be manipulated for private gain. And that latter road is the road to the end of the planet as we know it. So it's not just a matter of an empire, not just a matter of a mode of production or an economic system. We're talking about the future of the species. And that's about as serious as it gets. And then, of course, all the rationalizations and distractions of the powers that be, too often in the name of greed, trying to act as if that's alarmist, that's over-exaggerated, and so forth and so on, you see. So that I hear exactly what you are saying, though, brother, very much so. You know, it's interesting to me, though, when I was reading your history, that, you know, at the 1891 Constitution of Mississippi was the exemplary white supremacist state that stripped black people of all of their voting rights. Mississippi had 2 black senators in the 1870s because under Reconstruction, America's first effort at multiracial democracy, black people could vote. You had a majority of black folk in Mississippi. And it's hard to believe, Mississippi had 2 black senators? You don't say. Louisiana had a lieutenant governor. South Carolina had a black head of Supreme Court. Wow. Boom, 1877, it's over. So Mississippi comes along and says, we have a way of coming together to reconcile a white supremacist oligarchy with representative government. But that's exactly what William Smith said of the Annexation Club when they organized. And there's no accident that it was Thurston and Dole and the others that went to Mississippi and used the Mississippi Constitution as the model for ensuring that precious Kanaka brothers and sisters had no voice whatsoever, that allowed the oligarchy tied to the Big Five. You all know the story with the sugar plantations. Greed. And when I say greed, I'm not just pointing a finger. I'm pointing a finger at myself. I've got to make sure I control my own greed. When I talk about hatred, I've got to make sure I control my own hatred. And I do have tremendous hatred. But I have a hatred of injustice, a hatred of poverty, a hatred of houselessness. I love the formulation of my precious Kanaka sister. I'm not homeless. This is my home. This is my home. Did you hear that, James Cook? This is my home. But I don't have a house. That's what injustice in part is. You see. And I hate that. But I can hate those without running around hating people. I think, in fact, that if we view ourselves on a human continuum, we then want to check our own hatred, greed, hypocrisy by spending time with those in a movement that will keep us accountable. And that's difficult, because none of us in many ways want to really be accountable. That's true. We might talk about it, but we don't really want it, especially when we get power and status and spectacle. And that's one of the reasons why it's so easy for folk who have isolated individual successes to move to the height of the empire and become so well adjusted to injustice and well adapted to indifference that they think just their success itself is enough for the movement, rather than using their success for moral and spiritual greatness, which is empowering the least of these, the prisoners, the poor, the houseless, those who are victimized by various forms of violence. It could be domestic violence in the household. It could be vicious violence against our trans and gay brothers and lesbian sisters, any slice of humanity made in the image and likeness of God who are being trashed, who are being demeaned, who are being thoroughly disrespected. It could be Jews, it could be Arabs, it could be Muslims, it could be anybody, any group. And any group any group has the possibility of being part of that kind of demeaning and oppressing. And what did black people do when we went to Liberia? Subordinated indigenous peoples, just like the Europeans did when they got to the New World in Canada, or when they got to Australia and so forth, you see. Precious Jews jumping out of the burning buildings of Europe because of a gangster named Hitler. Where you gonna go? We don't know, they're killing us. You can't get more spiritually sick and morally depraved than that. Where you gonna go? Well, we're going to the Middle East. Which part of the Middle East? We're going where there's no people. No, there's some people here. There's some Jews and some Arabs there. No, we just see land. Well, that's what they said about America. Just land, Indians, and buffaloes. See how deeply xenophobic that is? And so you had to make a choice. You coexist with dignity. That's what Albert Einstein and some of the progressive Jewish brothers wanted to do. Or you simply dominate and occupy. That's what Jabotinsky wanted to do. And you see at present what one of the results are with the far-right government. We're going to dominate. We don't believe in coexistence. You think domination is going to lead to your security? Everybody ought to be concerned with the security of any oppressed group, but you don't get it by means of domination. So it is with Hawaii. We're going to dominate and occupy. You think that the voices of resistance and resilience are somehow going to be wiped out? Yes, we do. We got some strategies of wiping it out. Here we are, 2022, Piʻo Summit. The voices still coming. The voices still arising. The voices still having impact, embracing all of those who choose integrity, honesty, decency, and courage. Whosoever will, let them come. Just be willing to get in trouble and maybe go to jail. Some of us going to get killed, but that's all right. That's all right. No bullets can stop us, ever. Never has, never will. I'm sorry to end with the bullets like that, brother. Especially, I don't think my wife appreciates me talking about these bullets too much in public. We got so many death threats and things. But we'll go right ahead, though, brother.
No, the situation we're in, when you step back sometimes, and military is poisoning the water on Oahu.
Yes.
And our leadership thinks they can throw money at it. People that are, this is why, people that are courageous. Maisie is courageous on issues of wahine. She was a courageous challenger of Trump.
That doesn't take a whole lot of courage. But that moral bar is about this. Wow, you get a moral pride for opposing neo-fascists. Ooh. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but in the media it was celebrated, right? And yet just throwing more money at this military-industrial complex while people are getting sick, while our aquifer may be poisoned forever. It's a serious, serious issue. And sometimes I step back and I think, how crazy is it that we got to fight this hard to try to stop the Navy from poisoning our water? So how is that governed? How does that work? How is government so screwed up that they're convincing most of the people on Oahu that it's not the dire circumstance and crisis that it is? How do we better educate and uplift our people when we don't have access to the broad stream media, when almost every time you watch the news, there's going to be some celebration of the military, right? Let's be frank, watch a football game. I like football, I used to play it, but some part is going to celebrate U.S. imperialism. How do we counter that narrative even at home with our own constituents?
Yeah, you've got to first acknowledge that, people are where they are, and you have to go meet them where they are, which means that nobody either wakes up woke or doesn't undergo some kind of education or politicization or conscientization to be able to see things more clearly. And all of us have various limitations in our vision. That's just true as human beings across the board. So the first thing you want to say is, okay, well, we see that this propaganda machine is so powerful. TV and films and so forth. And so often it provides a space of fantasy that people get some distance from their suffering. But the fantasy and the paradise has very little to do with the concrete realities that people live. So how do we intervene? Well, here we are in this space. The arts become very important. Crucial. Not because we fetishize the arts. The arts aren't magical. They're human creations that allow people to see things more clearly and feel things more deeply and hear cries of people that they haven't been hearing and act more courageously. This is the musicians, this is the painters, this is the playwrights, this is whatever it is, whatever particular kind of artistic expression. And it's no accident that so often the arts have been themselves so colonized and commodified because those who rule know, going all the way back to Plato, and he banned most of the poets. And he also banned flutes, didn't he? That's very important in Plato's Republic. No flutes in this regime. Lyre with one string, yes. No flutes. How come, Plato? It's the only way you can keep the hierarchy in place so that the people will defer to the powers that be, because the flute will appeal to a non-rational side of you that may give you some ideas that lead towards subversion and critique. Crucial. That's one of the great tributes to the arts. When poets start getting banned, it means ruling classes know poets matter. Playwrights really matter. Musicians really matter. But if you're just writing poems and creating music that's just reinforcing the mainstream, then it just becomes the fluxum and flatsum of the present moment. And so one of the things we do is bring in the artists. I know you got the hip-hop anthology that my dear brother just said. And I've spent so much time, of course, in studios with musicians for danceable education. I've been blessed to teach in prisons for 42 years. And most of my precious brothers in prison, and that's very much a chocolate affair, you all know that. The prisons are almost about 75% black and brown on the mainland. I don't know what the percentage is in Hawaii for prisons. Is it a chocolate?
Kanako, yep.
It's a Kanako thing. Same thing as black people. Absolutely. And often in prisons, these precious brothers, they haven't had a chance to be educated in terms of the formal ways of education. So we do read text, but we have a lot of music, and we have a lot of poetry. And as they undergo the education, begin to see things more clearly and shift from what they used to do and see to where they are now and where they plan to be, you can see the ways in which we can break the back of these mainstream perceptions of the world. And when I was coming along, you know, we had Nina Simone, Gil Scott-Heron, Curtis Mayfield. Should I say those names? I got to stand up. I got to stand up. Oh, Lord. What we talking about? Hey, Sly Stone, the Isley Brothers. These are not just entertainers. These are truth tellers. They're trying to get people to pierce through the vision. They're using their gifts to cultivate ways in which you empower others by emptying themselves in such a way that they can touch folk to keep on moving in we'll keep on moving on the love train. Let me put it that way. To stay on the love train, the justice train. You all know what I'm talking about. Very much so. So the musicians play a very important role. There used to be a time when our churches and our mosques and our synagogues produced more prophetic folk. But our churches have become so commodified Our synagogues have become commodified. More and more of our temples are becoming commodified because it's so obsessed with American mainstream, success in the American mainstream. What happens to there is no God but Allah? What happens to let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream? That's what our Jewish brothers and sisters provided to the world. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with thy God, weeping for those who suffer. Jesus weeps. Socrates never sheds a tear. I'm not against the Greeks, but come on, Socrates. Anybody who's never cried has never really loved anybody. So intellectual integrity, wonderful. But if you never shed a tear, something is wrong with your heart. You're not vulnerable enough. You're not open enough in your heart to know what it is to find that heart broken, that heart ache, the very word that Shakespeare coined in Hamlet, the great play of his. And one of the things about my precious Kanaka brothers and sisters, they understand tears. They understand the relation between critical reflection and tears. And that's true in many ways of other traditions, especially of oppressed people. Because there's no way that you can deal with the bombardments of the American empire without shedding tears. And you got to come up with a way of transmuting those tears into both sound, community, connection, relation that keeps you and your loved ones going from one generation to the next, passing it on with Socratic insight, but also deep prophetic witness, grounded in tears that shatter the numbness of your heart and make you care, make you really, really care and be concerned about the suffering of others. That's part of the moral and spiritual renaissance that I think we really do need. And I think it's coming. I mean, I'm not naive about this. I do believe that we're reaching a turning point in terms of just how low the American empire can go. And one of the ways you find out how low it can go is read the history of this island. It's already prefigured, already been shown. You see. And then see how the best of those of both Kanaka and others as well came together and tried their best to keep track of the humanity of the least of these. Now, will we win? It's hard to say. It's hard to say. If we just keep going with integrity, honesty, and decency, that's already a certain kind of win. That's already a certain kind of breakthrough. You see. Because history is open-ended. It's mysterious. It's incomplete. We don't know when you're going to turn the corner. You see. But when you do turn that corner, you got to be ready. You got to be ready. Definitely.
Brother West, love you, bro.
Love you, though, brother.
I gotta leave.
You got to run?
I'll give you this first.
Oh, yeah. Good to see you, though, brother. Stay strong, though, man. Stay strong, though. Absolutely love you, though, man. Definitely. Yeah.
That means gift, ho'okupu.
That means,
Our ali'i on top of the cap.
oh, gift.
That means gift, yeah.
Wow.
It's a gift from us for you.
Lord have mercy. And I'm giving you my love and support, though, brother. We got each other's number, so we're going to remain.
I'm gonna call you.
That's good. That's right. He got the number. He got the number now. You got the number.
Right on, Mano. Love you, bro. Awesome work. Fly safe home to Molokai.
Yes. Be safe, be safe, be safe.
You know, your insights about music and the importance of the arts for survivance. I cannot help but think about our own history. People that struggled to keep olelo, hula, music alive. It resonates so strongly with our stories and our history. And I do have to acknowledge my dad is smiling big because he's all about mele and music and here tonight. And
Your beloved father.
Thank you.
Where is he? Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed.
But that's all of our families, you know, that fought to keep hula alive, that fought to keep our mele alive. because it kept us alive. It gives to us today. And you are giving us that reminder, to me tonight of how important that is.
Yeah, but brother, you've been doing precisely the same thing in your own distinctive, unique, and singular way. And to be able to function at the level of integrity that you do in this context is a tribute to your mother, your father, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, and so forth. And we got each other's number too. So
We're going on the road, I think.
That's the truth, brother. That's the truth, though, man. Lord, yeah.
It's an honor and a privilege, Dr. West. And thoughts on the university. You've been all around Harvard, Princeton, battled university administration. Just like you said, this institution was not created to service and liberate our people. University of Hawaii brings in probably more military contracts than anyone I know, if we're being frank. And our people have battled that in hearings at Board of Regents and in other spaces. But how do we survive and transform in the university system and structure? Or thoughts on how to be more successful in the institution itself. And part of what we did today was talking with community. How can we better support community and link our movements and have the university solve real-world problems for our islands?
No, I appreciate that. One thing we have to recognize is that it's only about 35% of our fellow citizens who even go to universities and colleges. So you got over 60-some% that never go at all. And they are as much fellow citizens as anybody else, with a degree or no degree. And why is that important? It's because the university has become so influential in terms of the professional managers who are most visible in the culture. You would think that 85% of Americans go to college because the only ones highly visible are those who do. And so when we think of the university, we have to think of what is its role and function in relation to democratic possibilities across the board, in relation to those who will go through and those who will not. Now, somebody like James Baldwin never went to college, but a college went through him. Self-taught. Ralph Ellison, Fannie Lou Hamer. There's so many folk. Curtis Mayfield dropped out of junior high in the 8th grade. Now, you listen to his lyrics, and you would think he got a PhD in musical studies. But Juilliard wasn't deep enough for him. He had to stay on the west side of Chicago, and we just ran into Philip Bailey today at the hotel. You all know Earth, Wind, and Fire. See, I got down on my knees for that brother. And I told him, brother, you have enriched my life in a way that I don't have a language for you and Maurice White and the others. Why? Because education is something that has to do with the formation of attention. It has to do with the cultivation of critical consciousness. And it has to do with the maturation of a mature, loving soul. Those three things can take place outside of the university. They can take place within the university. So first we get our criteria in place. Then you say, now let's see what the university is doing in terms of the formation of attention. Where are most of the students themselves focusing their attention? It's in STEM programs, right? Because that's where the money is. That's where the money is. More and more, almost 2/3 of the undergrads who enter go into science, technology, mathematics, and so forth. Why? Because it goes tied to finance. That's where the big cash is. So the formation of attention is very narrow. You don't get a lot of history at all. You don't get a lot of arts at all. You don't get talk about love of wisdom, philosophia, philosophy at all. Hardly any religion. Religare the binding around the things you cherish the most. So that then the question becomes, well, what's happening in these universities? Well, where's the money coming from? The big contracts on the one hand, sometimes tied to state legislatures if you're a public institution. Harvard just today announced its new president, Sister Claudine Gay. She's a black sister. She's a Haitian sister. Again, for symbolic purposes, I clapped for about 4 minutes. I say it's beautiful to see a brilliant black woman break through. There's no doubt about that. The racism is real, sexism is real. Now, what kind of sister are you? You just gonna fit in? You gonna be well adjusted to injustice? Come on, Sister Claudine. Now, I know her because she's head of the faculty. And I know her history. I won't go into that right now, but you know, you could imagine. To be president of Harvard, you know, you don't have a whole lot of Malcolm X in you. Let's just put it that way. Let's just be honest about it, you know. So that it depends on, you know, what other alternatives they had, but the university has become so commodified on the one hand, but you get neoliberal uses of diversity and equity and inclusion just to make the hierarchy more colorful with similar policies. Just like the empire was the same day with Brother Obama. It's more colorful at the top, so we get Eric Holder. We got a black attorney general. Ooh, we really gonna have justice now. Here comes the Wall Street collapse. Massive crimes and gangster activity on Wall Street, insider trading, market manipulation, fraudulent activity, predatory lending. How many Wall Street elites went to jail? 0. They got one middleman. They got more black people in the National Hockey League who went to jail. What happened, Eric Holder, black attorney general? What happened, Obama? Obama met with the Wall Street folk. What did he say? That's right, I stand between you and the pitchfork. He said, I just want you to know, I stand with you and I will protect you. I said, we don't need a president who tells Wall Street that you're going to protect them. You protect working people. Protect poor people. They already got their protection. You see? So it is in a university. If you're just going to get a university obsessed with diversity and you end up with the same kinds of narrowness in how the curriculum is divided, the same kind of narrowness in terms of what taboo issues you can't raise about empire and militarism and a whole host of other things, then you just end up with multicultural neoliberal activity at the top, and working people and poor people still overlooked. They still downplayed. They still pushed to the margins. So I support diversity. I'm glad to see Sister Claudine, black president of Harvard. I'm not going to break dance at all. Why? Because I'm concerned about what kinds of Socratic dialogues that have to do with the least of these and poor and working people can be made available. Part of the crucial role that Hawaiian Studies plays in such a context, that people can go and say, lo and behold, we got a dean with vision and courage. We got a professor who can cut against the grain. We got legacies of our dear Sister Trask and others who were concerned about suffering. It doesn't mean that Hawaiian Studies has the full truth, because they're human beings like anybody else. Afro-American Studies never had the full truth. Critical race theory doesn't have the full truth. It just has a whole lot of the truth, because you can't understand America without understanding predatory capitalist processes and white supremacy and its imperial project. That's truth-telling. That ain't got nothing to do with politics and so. Just telling the truth. Telling the truth. So what young people need is they need to be able to see concretely in the flesh persons like yourself and others who have a genuine calling, not just concerned about their career, have a genuine vocation, not concerned just about their profession, and a life task. not just concerned about the next job. And when they see that, it can become contagious. And you think in our own lives of those mentors who meant that much to us. And we didn't always agree with them. That's the important thing. You see, they asked us to question them, but they wanted us to have the integrity, honesty, and decency and courage that we started this dialogue. But the university, like any other site in an empire full of spiritual decay and moral decrepitude, is not the place to go if you want to see overwhelming courage and truth-telling. It's just not, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it hardly anywhere. Let's just be honest about it. You're not going to find it anywhere. So it's not a matter of viewing the university as monolithic and homogeneous. You got a lot of different kind of people in there. Some of them trying to hold on. But for the most part, the dominant orientation is just narrow taking. So making it becomes the fundamental aim rather than keeping faith with a truth-telling and a beauty creation that has to do with empowering people, especially working and poor people. But that viewpoint has never, ever been popular in the history of universities and colleges, ever. And we want to keep that in mind and recognize that we're going to have coalitions with some magnificent folk of different perspectives, different orientations, but as long as they're tied to serious truth-telling and justice-seeking, they're not necessarily going to be tied to the universities exclusively, not at all. Universities in the history of America have never been on the cutting edge of any struggle against capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, male supremacy. They just haven't. You got to bring them in kicking and screaming. Kicking and screaming. And I met my dear brother. Where's my brother who was in cultural studies? Where is he? He is the son of the sister who runs this place. There he is. Give it up for this brother right here. He knows what I'm talking about. This brother here doing an English and cultural studies. Oh, we had a wonderful conversation there with your sister and your mother. And I point you out because you have such a rich hybridity. You see, you're grounded in the great tradition of the Kanaka brothers and sisters, and yet you can connect with Zizek and Badiou and Marx and Nietzsche, as well as Du Bois, as well as Simone de Beauvoir, and so forth and so on. You always want to be inclusive because you got rich R-O-O-T-S, the best of your roots that allow R-O-U-T-E-S, the routes that you take to be international, cosmopolitan, global, but you got rich pillars that constitute wind at your back. And I know I'm staring at you because you already know that, but I just want to remind the others though on that though, brother. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Mahalo, Dr. West, for that. And yes, Kaipu, like I told you backstage. Yep, you're the child that was always around all of us. Right. So I'm going to use you as a bridge to kind of close out our evening. I know we could go on, and we could listen to the wise words and have this medicine be given to us all night. Right, and we probably will. There's probably an after party somewhere. I don't know where it is. They didn't tell me where it is, though. Yeah, no. But I'm going to take this moment to do some mahalos to our guest speaker here. And Kamana, if you have any last words. But Dr. West, some final thoughts after I share some aloha and mahalo to those who have made this day and this evening so very possible. To make these kinds of things happen in an institution like the one that Dr. West just described. And I thank the gods and my ancestors that I'm with the unpopular folks, with the unpopular ideas at the university. I thank my friends and colleagues and those in the revolution who, now I want to go out and play a flute. I don't, I do. There was a 7th grader in me that actually wanted to play the flute, but I didn't have the right body type. So I thought it was Lizzo that freed me from that. But actually it was tonight's talk with Dr. West that I realized I'm in my 7th grade, not knowing anything. I was trying to perform a revolutionary act against the system. So from hula, you might see me doing flute now. Yeah. Just because of that revolutionary act. But I'll go on with my thank yous. See, when you put a mic in front of me, I go off while they think of their last thoughts to share with us. Of course, Dean Osorio from Hawaii Nui Akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge. Mahalo nui loa. Dr. Willie Kauai over there from the Native Hawaiian Student Services. Thank you so much. My sister right here, Dr. Punihei Laip. Thank you so much. From the Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation here at the University of Hawaii in Manoa. Of course, the woman's whose house within. I'm just going to keep calling it your house from now on, right? Everybody's going to go, where are you going? Kennedy Theatre? No, Haile Opua's house. Dr. Haile Opua Baker. And now, of course, the famous Ka'ipu Makani Olono Baker. Mahalo nui to you too. He didn't say my name, so you're the famous one tonight, yeah. Of course, HAPA, the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action. Thank you, folks. Our dear friend, Wayne Tanaka. Wayne, are you still here? Wayne, yes. So a lot of courage and revolution going on in that body right there. Of course, with the Sierra Club. And also the Center for Hawaiian Studies, Kamanamaikalani. Oh, and where I work, the Center, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. Mahalo to those people. Aina Aloha Economic Futures. If any of you, besides Dr. Beamer, who are a part of that, mahalo to all of you. The Kamehameha Schools and Kanaiokana and their staff who are up here. They launch their own digital revolutions every day. Moani Kehala Navarro, where are you, sister? And Na'alehu Anthony. And of course, Kapua Sproats in our audience over here. We call her Mama Vai. Yeah. Actually, I never called her that before, but it just sounded right. From now on, everybody, Kapua Sprout, Mama Vai. Let's call her that, because that's what she is to all of us. To also Poi Ke Aloha Aina Lab and team, the team that put all the registration, guided everybody where they should go. Of course, that's Kavena Elkington, Pua Souza, Mahine Tushard, Kelsey Jorgensen, all of those Wahine. Of course, Auntie Dana Naone Hall, who this series is named after one of the critical beings in our revolution and in our evolution as Native Hawaiians. Then, of course, the man with the vision for all of this, whether he knew it or not. But has led a generation. I remember, I'm just going to share this just a little bit. I remember the first time Kamana walked into my office. It, graduated from high school, star football player at Kamehameha Schools, and came in and he was a philosophy major. And he wanted to be a Hawaiian Studies major. And he wanted to do Aina work. And I said, yes, come, Kamana, come and make this place your home. And then he has grown into the man, the father, the beast that he is today. Everybody, pa'i lima for Dr. Kamanamaikalani Beamer. And then the man who has brought us all here to this hale tonight, who crossed oceans, whose revolutionary thinking has impacted so many people, not just within the United States, not just within Hawaii, but across the world, to think of those who need to be thought of and not forgotten, and do the critical actions that they need to do in order to make humanity exist and thrive on. Again, with aloha, let's cheer on one of the greatest talks that I've heard coming from this man, Dr. Cornel West.
Dr. West. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sister Mahani, give it up for Sister Mahani!
Ua ke aloha kuka ia ka aloha hawehi mai nā lehua mai ko oku ia ka halawaila mahalo e nā kua mahalo e nā kupuna la ea mahalo me ke aloha lai mahalo me ke aloha lai mahalo.
Oh, Lord. Lord, Lord, Lord. Beautiful, beautiful.
Dr. West, we wanted to acknowledge you with that beautiful chant, Mahalo Ka'ipu, for starting that. But we will not let you escape the stage so quickly. We have one more song that the whole audience knows that we will do again at the end. But we wanted to take that opportunity while we were saying our thanks and giving our thanks to honor you with that. But some final thoughts.
Well, I must say I'm overwhelmed. We just had this beautiful music that always breaks the back of words. And you cut any sentences that I could say, and I hope you feel the beating of my heart, because it's been just a magnificent time. And I hope each and every one of y'all remain empowered and never be surprised by evil or paralyzed by despair. Always be full of courage, integrity, honesty, decency. I know I've said on many occasions that justice is what love looks like in public. And I think of the rich tradition of my precious Kanaka brothers and sisters who understand that. Tenderness is what love feels like in private. So we all want to be militants for gentleness, militants for sweetness, even as we struggle for justice. But any justice as only justice soon degenerates into something less than justice. You have to have the deep care and compassion and love for the people. That's what sustains you. That's the wind at your back, connected to the best of your ancestors who came before. And so for me to be here with you, I'll remember this till the day I die with a smile. I leave more fortified than ever. And we heading back on the plane tomorrow, back to the continent of the American Empire, trying to keep alive the best, and most importantly also finding joy in struggling. This is not a matter of somehow being so serious and solemn that you can't crack a smile or a joke. Richard Pryor is for real. So is Mom's Mabley. When I was growing up on the black side, the chocolate side of Sacramento, California, at Shiloh Baptist Church, I was told, little Cornel, Remember every day of your life, if the kingdom of God is within you, then everywhere you go, you ought to leave a little heaven behind. And try to leave just a little heaven behind with a text, or a poem, or a touch, or a grin, or a hug, or an arrest, being part of social movement. Leave a little heaven behind. That's what the precious Kanaka brothers and sisters have been doing at their best in the face of an overwhelming power, but not an almighty power. It's a mighty power, but it's not almighty. Never forget that in facing the largest empire in the history of the species. Every empire comes and goes. The American empire will also come and go. The question will be, what comes after? Will there be the kind of democratic empowerment of working and poor people, not just here, but around the world? Or will there be new forms of authoritarianism and neo-fascism? We don't know. But we're going to have a good time doing it. So go down swinging, and it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. There's Duke Ellington. Oh, yes. Keep swinging. Keep swinging. Keep swinging. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Thank you so much, my dear sir.
Mahalo for that medicine, Dr. West. And I just realized now we were in an hour-and-a-half long pule. From beginning to end. You know, the best of our kahuna la'o lapa'au would share with us that the medicine is 90% pule, 10% the la'au. Both equally we have to take care of. We need to be wise with our words that impact and hit just as powerful as any medicine created by man and or nature. So mahalo, Dr. West, for your medicine that you are leaving behind here in Hawaii for our people who will take of it what we need, and for leaving a little bit of heaven with us too. Thank you, thank you,
Thank you so much. Oh, my dear sister. Oh, thank you so much. Indeed, indeed, indeed. My brother. Oh, thank you, brother. Oh,
Thank
you were magnificent.
Thank you. I'm going to sing this with you.
Yeah.
Kuhome kula ivine oli no awina ponola nio he Hawaii aloha haoli e nā o Piʻo Hawaii nei oli mai nā ahe makani e pā mai nei mau ke aloha no Hawaii e haoli e nā o Piʻo Hawaii nei holi mai nā ahe makani e pā mai nei mau ke aloha no Hawaii mau ke aloha Hawaii aloha mai kākou Thank you so much, Dr. West.
Oh, love you, love you, love you, love you. Definitely. Lord, Lord, Lord.
Photo op, photo op. Now you can take pictures. Yeah.